Thank you everyone who's come on what is clearly a disgustingly hot day. Though I actually had a fear that I would be chairing this session in shorts because there's been 2 fires in my office block already today. Fortunately, I was able to go get almost into a suit. But again, thank you for everyone coming today. We've clearly got a very interesting panel of speakers, and hopefully the Shadow Minister will be joining us later on as well. So we're all here today to hear about the delays with the Home Office, which, you know, a blind man on a fast horse can see that's affecting a much wider portion of society on a daily basis now, where it's issues with visas, passports, general immigration, and clearly what we're going to be talking about today, its impact on life and business. So our speakers today, and in a slightly changed order, we have Fizza Qureshi, the CEO of the Migrants Rights Network. Secondly, we have Hakan, Elbir, the founder of the Dialogue Hub. We then have Ali Arslan, the entrepreneur and startup mate. So I'm really looking forward to listening to yourself. And then Bulman, the independent social affairs correspondent. And then hopefully Stephen Kinnock, the Shadow Minister for Immigration, will be joining us about 6-ish if all goes to plan. But obviously no one wants to really listen to me. We've got experts in the field and I'm just the token person chairing the panel. So we'll go over to Fizza to start. Roughly about 6 minutes. I'll give you a nudge to wrap up, and then we'll go, once we go through the speakers, we'll open up to a Q&A towards the end. So over to you, Fizza.
Brilliant, thank you. And thank you again for the invitation, Ali and our legal incentives. And for yourself, Christian, for hosting it as well. I think it's a really important and timely kind of meeting and event. One, because we've launched the report today, which is called The Life and Hold and the Consequences of the Home Office Delays for ECAA visa holders. And I'm going to share some of the survey findings and the recommendations, but the report is on our website, and I think Ali will circulate it to all the attendees as well, so you don't have to trawl for it, hopefully. Essentially what the key findings was the wait, the impact of the wait as well, but now we have people waiting up to 2 years for a decision, an outcome which we think is horrendous. And certainly goes beyond the UK Visas and Immigration Service 6-month service standards that they claim that they commit to. And we know that that's for non-complex cases, but with 8,000 applications pending as of December 21, and there's been a ramping up of classifying cases as non-complex and non-straightforward, we know that they're using this as an excuse basically to take longer and longer to make decisions. Of the 58 respondents that we received, kind of responses we received, 41 of them had basically been told by the Home Office that their case is complex. But they weren't provided with further information. They were rarely asked to be interviewed, and if they were interviewed, it was very basic questions, almost to the point of, well, this isn't my initial application, why are you asking me simple questions again? And some of them haven't received a response at all, so to understand where their case lies as a straightforward or non-straightforward case. I think the key thing here is obviously the impact of that waiting, and we've had lots of people share their stories through the report and beyond the report with us around the financial loss that they've received to their businesses, but also the mental and emotional toil that it's had, not just from themselves, but also their family members. You can imagine this is happening during the period of pandemic, where you want to be with your loved ones. Bereavements are sadly happening in that time period, and they're not allowed to be with their families and loved ones at that time to console them. We also know that ECAA visa holders are not eligible for public funds. So what do they do when they are facing destitution? Who are they allowed to turn to? Because they are meant to be relying solely on their income from their business, and supporting themselves and any dependents in their country, in the UK, financially. We've also been told that some of the applicants, because there is incorrect interpretations of right to work and right to rent checks, which is part of the hostile environment in the UK, some individuals haven't been able to carry on and continue their work, so they're not able to get ongoing consultancies because people want to confirm someone's visa status as kind of extended as opposed to pending. And we would say this is incorrect because they are actually allowed to continue to rent and to work during that time period, but there are issues around that. Essentially, respondents felt that there was a significant decline in their mental well-being, and 91% stated that they felt stress and anxiety due to the delays. And many, as I said, have been kept apart from their loved ones during this kind of this turmoil, that we've all, global turmoil we faced with the pandemic. And it's prevented them from being with family members while they're ill or during bereavements. When individuals have asked for cases to be expedited for compassionate reasons and giving very, clear evidence, the Home Office has responded in its, I would say, typical and compassionate manner, which is you can withdraw your application if you want to travel to Turkey, which is, again, incredibly kind of callous to when people have invested their lives. They're waiting for a decision. It's not their fault the Home Office isn't able to perform better and kind of make decisions. And again, despite being obligated to write to individuals about the complexity of their cases, they're failing to do that as well. So individuals are left very much in kind of a limbo state. They don't know what's happening with their cases, and they don't also know who to ask for that information, because usually it's your case is in progress, and it's very kind of a standard line that they receive. The Home Office has some valid reasons around the COVID backlog, you would say, but now we're 2 years on, and we're still using that as an excuse. And now they have the kind of prioritisation of Ukrainian refugees as another reason to basically say this is why everything is delayed, which again, it's more to do with the fact that that's poor management within the Home Office to understand when you have pressures on yourself. Here are some of the recommendations from the findings, and these were again co-written with some of the respondents as well. So this isn't just from MRN's perspective. But anyone waiting a decision beyond the 6-month standard should have their cases now decided as a matter of priority. It shouldn't have to wait for anything else to be prioritised. It's totally inappropriate. And where this isn't possible because of it's deemed a complex case, then we would say that no case should take any longer than 9 months for an outcome. And that would be, so we're being lenient, we're giving the Home Office another 3 months to look at your cases and now give an outcome and a decision to it. We feel also, collectively, the Home Office has to be held to account for the delays in decision making. Why is it that this is happening? We would ask for a published audit as to how we've got to a state where people are waiting up to 2 years for a decision, and how they'll ensure that future delays don't occur. Because again, if there's another pandemic or there's another excuse, then another cohort of people are going to be affected. And we know how they, don't respect individuals when they are in this situation.
Yeah. Fizza, we're around about 6 minutes now.
Yeah, okay. Last point. The Home Office don't seem to consider the consequences of the delays. There are no repercussions to their performance. We've seen that today, last week, when they didn't turn up to the Home Affairs Select Committee to be questioned either. So we think financial consequences might get them to improve, encourage them to improve rapidly, and we would ask for compensation for anyone that's had to wait for a decision beyond the 9 months. So again, we're being lenient and has endured a negative impact to their business and finances. And just lastly, we urge the Home Office to abide by its own customer commitments, ensure that everyone is treated with respect and have their cases prioritised so that they can restore their own lives and livelihoods.
Thank you, Fizza. I think it's clear from what you've just said, it's not just the impact on business, but that human and mental cost that you talked about. For some reason, the Home Office seems to overlook this on a daily basis. So I think it's a very important point to keep on raising. Our next speaker to my right is Hakan, who's the founder of the Dialogue Hub, who will be speaking about his business journey as a visa holder employing more than 30 deaf and hearing impaired people.
And blind.
Oh, and blind.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll share my journey, as you mentioned, in short, and try to explain actually how it was difficult to realize a social inclusion project while dealing with the visa process. I set up my own company in September 2019 to generate measurable social impact by doing business differently in a more inclusive way for forward thinking under Anchor Agreement. When I come to London, actually, I decided to create spaces for dialogue, interaction, experiential learning I highly believe in the amazing power of storytelling and experiential engagement. And that's why I pitched the idea of Dialogue in the Dark in Hackney in 2019, December, which means 3 months after I found my company, I think, which was amazing progress. The famous philosopher actually, we created Dialogue in the Dark based on the quote of Martin Buber. The only way to learn is through encounter. At that time, we trained and employed around 12 blind and visually impaired people who were unemployed and who were staying at home. So we just not only gave them a job, but also gave them an opportunity to socialize with us or with others. So it was very important at that time. But unfortunately, as you may remember, we all remember, by the way, COVID hit us very badly. After 3 months, we opened exhibition. In 3 months, we received around 5,000 visitors, again, which was a very, very important amount, actually, number of visitors. So we had an amazing media coverage and feedback from society, blind institutions, disabled institutions, and so on. On these days, I went to Turkey actually for a weekly business trip. It was planned to be there only 1 week because I've been running the same business, the bigger one, in Turkey for the last 10 years. So that's why I had to go there and deal with my business. But due to travel restrictions, at that time, COVID started and travel restrictions announced, and I stuck in Istanbul in Turkey. So it was supposed to be only 1 week, but I stayed there 6 months. So I couldn't come, and unfortunately I had to evacuate my flat because I wasn't in London and no one could help me to remove my stuff, my belongings, and at the end I found someone and this guy helped me, and then but when I returned to London, I didn't have any place to stay, and I started looking for a home to rent, but my BRP expired, so I couldn't find a flat. Although I can afford to pay my rent, the landlord and the real estate agency rejected me kindly, rejected me. And at the end, I went to my lawyer and asked for help. Can you imagine? On one hand, I was looking for a venue to realize my business again, social business, because around 12 people were unemployed. And they were looking at me, but on the other hand, I was looking for a flat to stay because I was kind of homeless at that time. It was very hard, but thanks to my lawyer, he prepared a letter saying that our application is being processed. So, which means my current visa is still, will remain unchanged until decision is made. So thanks to this letter, I managed to rent a flat, and then I went to back my job, and thanks to our ambassadors and our partners, we managed to secure another venue in Waterloo, and one of them, our Ibrahim. Once again, thanks for his support. Otherwise, we couldn't continue our journey because, disabled people actually, what I observed so far in London, transform themselves from, let's say, let me check, I took a note, I like this theme, from passive welfare seekers to active shapers of their own life. And that's what I observed. And, and with this motivation, actually, we launched another project, which is Dialogue Cafe. And this cafe is the first British Sign Language coffee shop in London. So we trained and employed deaf and hearing impaired people as barista. Of course, we collaborated with all press and other coffee experts. But I started learning a British Sign Language. By the way, it's totally different from the Turkish Sign Language. But I somehow managed to, of course, communicate with our deaf people, because there's no way to communicate with this people.
We've gone past 6 minutes now. If we can try to wrap up.
So, in a nutshell, I would like to say I could contribute more to the community and take more burden of the government in terms of course, providing job opportunities for disabled people if the visa process was easier. So I hope this meeting raises awareness on the government so that we as visa holders under Ankara Agreement may more contribute to the UK economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Hakan. Again, I think it's a case where if government was more joined up, and the left hand and the right hand actually seeing the benefit of what social enterprise like you're operating would actually be beneficial,
Exactly.
not only in London but perhaps to the health service, to education, and so many other fields. But computer says no, it seems. For our third speaker, we have Ali Arslan, a entrepreneur and startup mentor.
Yes, that's
Over to
true.
you.
Thank you, Christian. I want to start off by thanking amazing people who made this panel possible. Firstly, Ibrahim and Seftus. If it wasn't for Ibrahim, this panel would not be possible. And for you, Christian, for chairing the meeting. There are also some amazing people here with us, ECAA holders, who have actually contributed to this panel. There is Ferhat, who's taking our photos. Hello, Ferhat. There's Gökhan, who has a digital agency, who's actually taking videos of this evening. And also this panel is actually very unique. It will be the first panel in British Parliament history that will be broadcast in the metaverse. That will be hopefully tomorrow. And that is all thanks to Ibrahim. Ibrahim, are you here? Yes, again, another ECAA visa holder. He's the founder of a company called Meta Campus. I wanted to give these examples because these are, I'm sure there are many other amazing ECAA visa holders here in this room, because these people are actually contributing to the British economy. These people are integrating themselves to generating wealth, and like with the example of Hakan, of doing social impact projects. However, we have one problem. For example, Ferhat, he has his visa extension application in, and he cannot travel. He's actually stuck here. And for business purposes, I know personally, for example, he's just lost a £200,000 job in, was it Spain or Ibiza?
Ibiza.
Okay, in Ibiza. Okay, so this travel restriction is actually preventing, ironically, a visa that is called a Turkish business visa from traveling abroad. So these people are, unfortunately, they cannot attend exhibitions, they cannot attend meetings with their business partners. I don't want to go into the emotional aspect of it. I'm sure, I mean, Fizza went through it with so many examples of people who are unable to visit their loved ones' funerals, for example. But it has a huge cost to business. And also the morale of these founders, I call them startup founders, SME founders, is actually sort of degenerates after 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, in some cases 2 years. And it affects their performance. I mean, for example, if it wasn't for Hakan, these 30 plus blind and deaf disabled people wouldn't have had jobs. And so thankfully for this visa, Hakan is able to provide such an opportunity for these people. So I really wanted to actually find the rationale behind this travel ban for pending visa applications. And I came across two things. One is called a travel restriction order, a TRO order, and that is only given to people who are involved with drug trafficking. You're not allowed to leave the country. And the other one is called the passport order. And that is if you're involved with highly criminal activity, you're not allowed to leave the country. So in effect, these business people here in the UK providing all these job opportunities are sort of in a very similar category, although not for the same reasons. They are unable to go outside the United Kingdom and continue with their business. And the rationale behind this, I don't have any reasons at all, Christian. Maybe you might have something to say about the rationale behind this travel ban, and I'm sure when Stephen arrives, he will also have sort of reason behind it. So hopefully, I hope this panel and going forwards will be able to make some pressure in the Home Office with Ibrahim to actually change or very easily give the people the opportunity to travel when their visa application is in a pending status. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, like I said, the impact on travel, the impact on business, especially when we're looking at a global Britain, as we keep on hearing about going out and trying to grow the economy, it just seems counterintuitive that we're actually preventing it from doing so, and then treating people like criminals by stopping them from travelling for a plethora of reasons just seems wrong for so many different reasons. Our final speaker before hopefully Stephen joins us is May Bulman, who's the Independent Social Affairs Correspondent, who actually won the Anti-Slavery Day Award for Best News Piece in 2017 and 19. But most aptly wrote in January of this year that thousands of Turkish nationals in Britain were trapped in limbo due to Home Office delays, which I think we're hearing real life examples of that just now. So over to you, May.
Thanks, Christian, and thanks for having me here. I think it's a really important discussion. So just to start off with, in my role as a journalist who writes a lot about immigration, I often get contacted by people who are facing Home Office delays. And, I guess we've established that Home Office delays are a massive issue and they seem to only be getting worse. But it's interesting because I guess the cases I tend to see are the one, like, there are people who are really desperate, who have kind of, going to the media is generally someone's last resort. Like, no one wants to have their name in a headline and have their picture out there telling everyone about their immigration case. And I also often have people, like people's lawyers getting in touch. A lot of immigration lawyers feel like they've actually exhausted every avenue legally, which really shows how messed up the system is, that lawyers feel that the only way to get cases resolved is by going to the media. Sometimes it can resolve the issue. There are sometimes cases where, I write about it and I contact the Home Office press office, and you find that once it gets to the Home Office press office, suddenly it's sped up and it's like, oh God, it's going to be the media, so we can look into this case now. And actually there was a recent example just a couple of weeks ago. A young man got in touch who was a Somali Dutch national, and he'd been waiting on his EU settlement application for like nearly 3 years, which is really unusual. It's meant to take like a few days, and he'd been trying to contact the Home Office constantly, but just getting nothing back, calling them, being told he'd be called back, but hearing nothing. I contacted the Home Office about his case, and they, like within a few hours, they got back to me and said, oh, this man's actually in prison, he's been convicted for murder. And I was like, well, I just spoke to him yesterday, and they were like, no, like he's in prison, we're not going to give him status. And obviously they hadn't told him this. And then I was like doubting myself, thinking, was he calling me from prison or something? I called him back, and he said, he sort of was silent for a minute. He said, oh my God, they've mistaken me for my twin brother, and his twin brother was in prison, convicted for murder. But basically that whole time, nearly 3 years, they just hadn't bothered to tell him, that they had been refused for that reason, and actually they'd made this mistake. And like within hours they kind of apologised, and within a few days they actually gave him status, but the wrong kind of status. They gave him pre-settled status, and he was meant to get settled status because he's been here since he was a child. So that was messed up as well. But that was an example where kind of, going to the media can kind of resolve a case where people are unable to do it themselves. But to be honest, a lot of the time that doesn't work, and especially with these Home Office delays, they're so widespread that, to be honest, like, I often get people contacting me, and I can pitch it to my editor, but they aren't necessarily interested because everyone knows about the Home Office delays, so it's barely even a story anymore. And that brings me on to the ECAA issue. So sort of towards the end of last year, I started being contacted by a couple of people who are facing these ECAA delays. They were asking if I could do a story on it. And at first, to be honest, I didn't actually know what the ECAA visa was, so to me it was a bit like, it seemed quite, I suppose, obscure because it was something that most people wouldn't have heard of. But I had to look into it, and I thought, actually, this is quite a big issue. Pitched it to my editors, they weren't particularly interested because, again, they were just like, oh, it's more Home Office delays, we know this is happening. But I mean, testament to the ECAA people who were being affected, because they kept kind of contacting me with new cases, and then they ended up kind of doing their own survey of people that they knew in this cohort, and it actually came up with some really, you know, interesting findings. And in the end, like, I managed to get my editor, you know, some of the cases were really strong. There was reports of one man who had actually fallen homeless because he couldn't prove his status. His family lost their home, and he couldn't work. And then also just the cases that Fizza mentioned of missed funerals. People were really just distraught. So I did write that story, and I was really glad that I managed to push it through in the end, because it had, you know, a lot of pickup, because clearly so many people were affected by it. And, you know, it's a shame because nothing seems to have really changed since then, and people are still facing these delays. But I think people felt like at least they've had a voice, and like that their situation is on the record now, and the Home Office has been held to account a little bit. But yeah, just on that, I mean, you know, these were people who are part of British society. They were literally doing jobs that really were helping the economy run, and as we've just heard. So it's just such a shame that they're facing this issue. And yeah, I suppose recently, you know, things haven't really improved on the wider scale either. There are so many delays in the system at the moment, and the government was using COVID, now Ukraine, and there's so many different groups of people who are being affected. So we've got, I recently wrote about like the Home Office doubling the time that it's taking to decide on family visa applications. And, you know, in one case I wrote about a young Afghan boy aged 14 who is in a camp in Eastern Europe, in a refugee camp. His brother is in the UK. He's already been waiting 2 months, and the Home Office just told him he's going to have to wait another 4 months before he gets a response. You know, he's likely to have to wait another 4 months because it's going to be 28 weeks. And it's just like devastating people's lives. And then also Afghan, so former interpreters for people who formerly worked for the British forces in Afghanistan. Obviously with the Taliban takeover last August, that's, you know, a lot of them are facing really dangerous situations in Afghanistan, and they've been promised that they would, you know, the Arab scheme basically started in order to try and help these people, but they're still waiting months and months on in hiding. And I've spoken to a lot of those people, and it's just awful. And they, you know, they get letters saying that it's because of the Ukraine crisis that we can't decide on your case right now. And obviously passport delays, I did a piece on that yesterday. I spoke to people who have just been waiting months and months for passports when it's meant to take maximum 10 weeks. So, yeah, I think, you know, the Home Office does have these excuses as to why it's taking so long, but it's always been an issue. And really, you know, it's not inevitable. There needs to be more, you know, probably more staffing. They're really short-staffed in the Home Office, and the issue needs to be tackled at its root rather than just trying to kind of deal with the crises as they come when it goes into the media, you know. And they said in the Windrush, that they accepted the Windrush report recommendation that they would see the face behind the case more, but that doesn't seem to be happening. So I think there just needs to be a bit of an evaluation in the Home Office about how they're going to start solving these issues.
We've gone past 6 minutes if you want to. Oh, all good. Obviously, whilst we are still potentially waiting for the Shadow Minister to join us, I'll start opening up for questions from around the table and from the audience. However, I'll start by attempting to answer Ali's question as to what I think the rationale. And this is, I don't think there is one. It's no secret that I don't have any confidence in this government anymore. But I think it's based on incompetence, it's short staff like May was saying, and it's just a lack of priority more than anything. It's not been the political expedient choice to make. You know, first it was, you know, the Arab scheme for Afghans, and obviously we've seen that's not worked. You know, they've not done anything since last August really, and you know, like we're seeing, you know, people are waiting in camps. Then it's been Ukraine, and you know, I would argue rightly so, but I'm Ukrainian. But again, there's not really been much of a priority, and it's felt very, very slow. So staffing is probably a huge issue, and you know, when we've been hearing recently that you know, there's planned 20% of cuts of staffing across the civil service, it's only going to get worse. I don't see any way that this is going to improve either in the short term, the medium term, or the long term. under the current regime. And the story you gave me of the twin being mistaken, I've had that myself with having a twin and insurance companies, and it's not, you've had this accident. It's like, no, I haven't. But obviously, it wasn't quite, you're in prison. So I've a lot of sympathy for that story, but again, these are basic errors where they shouldn't be being made, and it's because there's no time to actually look into a case to do it properly or to prioritise it, and I think it's a damning indictment of where we are, and really that needs to change. However, I'm conscious there are probably quite a lot of questions, hopefully from the audience, so if you want to raise a hand, and then we'll take it from there. If it's a particular question for any member of the panel or for the wider panel, we'll go from there.
Christian, before the questions, yes. I wanted to ask you,
oh, okay.
do you think we were able to see the Home Office on purpose is actually making these travel restrictions for pending visa applications on the hope that people will voluntarily actually remove their application and just leave the country? Do you think that is something that they're actually doing on purpose? Because there are no mistakes. It's all, it's people's choices. Do you think you will?
To suggest they're doing it on purpose would suggest that they actually care. And I don't think that, I think it is just a general lack of understanding, of compassion for one. So is it on purpose? No, but I think it all feeds into that wider narrative of it's not really their priority. If it's a relatively small sample of people for them, they can probably cope with that. When it was Windrush, they could cope with that. It wasn't their priority, it wasn't their electorate, their demographic, so why did they care? I don't see it changing, other than throwing a whole load of new staff members into the Home Office, and I don't see that happening anytime soon either. So I think at the moment, it's what we can do to mitigate these issues, and it can't always be go to the press or go to your MP, and even as a member of Parliament myself, I'm still on the phone for 2 hours at a time just to get through to speak to someone. Then it's usually, we can't tell you anything. Well, thanks, but at least tell us, have you got it? Is it in the system? At least give us something we can go back with. And it's just like the go-to response again is computer says no, can't tell you anything. Which is really helpful, either from a casework perspective, but more importantly from the human element that we were talking about right at the beginning. And it means you can't plan life events, funerals, weddings, births, business, everything is on hold and in limbo, and it's not right, and it needs to change.
Thanks.
Any questions? First time.
It's not really a question. I'm a lawyer in Redfern, legal to Redfern. We deal a lot with Turkish people and businesses and the ECAA visa. Now the ECAA visa obviously was stopped due to the EU treaty, UK moving out, and all the people who are left here waiting for their renewals, their extensions of their visas, have unfortunately been joined by a load of other people who are also now waiting for their applications to be decided. And I'm talking about the sole representative visa route, which was closed on the 11th of April this year. Normally the turnaround is 3 weeks, and nobody has been given any indication of when those visas are going to be decided. So they have now joined that queue. Also the innovator visa and the startup visa, which are the successors to the entrepreneur visa, they have also been waiting for their decisions. So all I can say is that unfortunately the queue of people, you said 8,000 people, are waiting. They've been joined by other people, so they are not exclusively chosen as deliberately being put to the back of the queue. There are other classes of visas that have also been put to the back of the queue. And the reasons given are the ones that you have stated, which are the Ukraine conflict and before that, the COVID situation. Now, one mitigating factor, just finally to finish, the sponsor license arrangement. In the old days when the ECAA visa was very popular, one of the reasons was because the sponsor license, you couldn't go via the sponsor license route if you owned more than 10% of the company. Now that rule has been abolished. So essentially anybody who owns 100% of a company can sponsor themselves to come into the UK, whereas before they couldn't, or unless you had a really high salary. So one option that people have, but they would be giving up the time that they've spent in the UK for residence purposes, would be to leave, go back, apply, or leave, first of all get a sponsor license for their UK company, then leave and be sponsored to come back. The wait time for that visa is 8 weeks. You would be sacrificing the residence that you have built up, but 5 years with the new sponsor license, you get to residence. So I just put that out there as one option for people who are suffering, who can then go back once the sponsor license is obtained and apply for a visa.
Our first bit of free advice for the evening, which is always appreciated. Is there any questions from anywhere in? Yes.
First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm a Turkish business person, Riza holder as well, and I could go to Turkey for 2 years since I moved here. And it's really good to feel like we're seen and we're like being understood, because we feel like we can't reach to anyone and like we can't talk to anyone. So thank you for this opportunity. What I want to ask, I have actually 2 questions about my situation, but I believe many people is in the same situation. So it's been 1 year since my application, and last week I attended the interview, and I'm wondering, like, normal waiting period is 6 months, you know that, but because it's been 1 year already, do I need to wait for 6 months to like make a complaint or like maybe sending an email to MP? I'm just wondering, is this making it easier, or some people say it may backfire? I don't really know, like everybody says something different, so.
I don't think you should wait to make a complaint. I think others have found that when they've made a complaint, they've actually got more information about their cases. And I know there's someone in the audience who finally, when she made a complaint, that she actually found out that her case has been classified as complex. And contact your MP straight away. I think the problem is that you do, without that pressure, and external pressure, it's quite difficult. Not every story, as you heard, is going to get from the media. We know that there's fear of sharing your story in the media as well, because will my visa application immediately be rejected? And we have to say with another group of people, the highly skilled migrant group, we know that as soon as someone went on Newsnight, the following day he got a rejection from the Home Office, and he was trying to, get ILR. So we know that they can also go the other way. It can be a negative impact as well. So I would say, put pressure on as soon as you are waiting. I mean, you have if you've got a commitment standard there, then surely you should be upheld to it. Surely you should be there should be transparency around, when people are having to wait. Why are they waiting, and how long are you going to have to wait? Much longer. What is your time limit? If you were given some of that information, I think then you could manage what you're going to do with your lives better, right? I mean, what I didn't share was there's people that shared that they are separated from their children. They've been separated for 2 years plus from, young children, and now the children are needing psychological support because they're separated from their father. So, there is a real, like you said, the human impact is immeasurable, right? So you use whatever means possible, use the legal means. We've encouraged ECAA visa holders to also look at pre-action protocols, go to jail, get it to a judicial review, because until it gets to the legal, courts, it seems to be, the Home Office don't seem to care. Like you said, they don't care until it's going to hit them legally or in the purse.
I would echo that. I mean, from casework at the moment, I think 25% of mine is Home Office related. Majority passports, obviously, with the time of year we're at, but a lot is immigration casework, and everything we've heard tonight doesn't surprise me in the slightest. So I would say I would echo Fizza and just say, just speak to your MP, start going down that complaint process. And don't bother waiting, you've already waited long enough, would be what I'd say. Did you say you had a second question as well?
It was all related, do I need to wait 6 months, and what should I do? Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions in the, yes?
I was just wondering, in terms of practical implications for individuals who are stuck in the UK, so I'm an immigration lawyer as well, there's rules rules that basically mean that if you leave the UK, your application is deemed to be withdrawn. I understand historical reasons why that may be the case with applications, sending paperwork, using passports. The Home Office has moved over the last few years to a very digital online process. We're looking at things like digital visas. What sort of practical steps could be taken to change the rules? Because I think, yes, having a delay to your status can be a concern, but day to day, if you're able to travel, you're able to visit family, you can live your life in a way, perhaps, that having a physical piece of paper doesn't necessarily mean as much now. What can we do about that, and are there going to be efforts to look at the immigration rules to really catch up with digitalisation processes?
So I think part of this is the political side of it, and there are exemptions and ways for kind of emergency passports. So if you're going to Israel, Pakistan, India, obviously if someone dies, we've got to be in the ground within like 24, 48 hours. But if you don't normally plan around these events, they can just happen. So if you then find out your passport is expired, what do? You can't wait 10 weeks when the funeral is going to take place. So there are emergency procedures. I mean, that could be expedited. You could essentially try to implement a pause of, right, well, you have a genuine reason to leave. The pragmatic view would be, we would like you to have your visa, but we know you've waited for long enough already. Can we just pause it and then we'll resume when you get back? All of these just sound like common sense, which obviously means they won't be adopted because this is politics. But it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to come out with a new way of thinking. It's just about flexibility and pragmatism. We just ultimately need to do what we're doing now and listen. What are the concerns? What do you actually want to see and to be enacted on, and to take it from there. So I think it would be listening, and common sense would go a long way. Unfortunately, it does seem to be lacking in the Home Office, but how often do we want to hear about the hostile environment or about pretty? And I think I'm already tired of listening about it, but it's still there and it's still going strong. We only need to look at their policies at the moment, and it's not what we can do to correct the issues, it's what we can do to cause more division and create policies like Rwanda. So I don't think there's political will that may well change in a couple of weeks' time. I'm not overly confident it will do, but I think we need to hope, and I think it could well be we're waiting for a change in government for some of these real meaningful policies to actually take place and ultimately benefit everyone around this table in the room and watching on the metaverse, which is kind of scary as well, for some of these changes to actually take place. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add to that.
Can I just add, I think the only thing I would say is there's just to be cautionary about going down just the digital route, because we know the digital route is also got a lot of faults and errors because the Home Office database is never actually up to date and has lots of errors. So we've seen that in terms of people being refused right to work, right to rent, and not knowing and then how to correct that error because Home Office computer says no. And that's the only thing that I would say is if you're going to go down that route, then there needs to be a lot of kind of checks and balances and safeguards built into that so that no one kind of gets caught out that they go to Turkey and then they can't get back in because their database isn't up to date.
Thinking to tying it in with other things like carrier's liability, there's obviously risk if an application is refused and you get different legal rights in terms of appeals. But I think on a purely practical basis, it's definitely opportunity there to look at doing things like the historic 90-page application form.
You're making me feel nervous about the thought of a 90-page form now. Any other questions from the audience? Yes.
My name is Zafer. Actually, I'm in the same situation as ECAA. I'm 1 year I have spent 1 year in this country, and I'm on the extension stage. I think I have listened very carefully to all the audiences, and actually, I just want to thank Ibrahim for this organization as well. And it's very helpful, first of all, but I'm not expecting as a user, let's say it's from the user perspective, I'm not expecting that the Home Office will do a fastest route, will find the fastest route for us. I'm not expecting this because in the daily life of UK, nothing is going very fast actually. And for that reason, in my perspective, as a user, as a practical approach to your question actually, is as long as we can travel, there will be no problem actually. If I totally agree with you, Arslan, actually, because the travel restriction is affecting our lifestyle. Other than that, we can do it. I can find a way. Rent to check. Right to rent. I can do it because your agency is making a letter to Home Office, and Home Office is replying it within immediately and making an extension to it. You can find a way, but to travel is something that you cannot. Well, for example, I have businesses in Turkey. I'm doing developments in Turkey as well. I have too many companies, and every time if something is happening now, I'm going to Turkish embassy, taking an appointment from the embassy. It's not now, it's 3 weeks time. I have to wait, they have to wait. Actually, the main issue is if we concentrate as a practical approach, I think it's the travel restriction. If there will be no travel restriction for us, I don't care about when the visa is coming, actually. I'm continuing my life here. My perspective is more focusing on UK, less focus on Turkey. That's why I'm here, and I have established my business. But I think the practical approach is my suggestion to the audience, actually, is we have to first, if we say Home Office be fast, it will not gonna happen. My idea is this. It will not gonna happen. Nothing will happen. Nothing will change. Actually, I thank you for your recommendation as well. But it is something that you have to think about. Because you are giving right back, and then taking another, maybe you will take it back.
And spending money.
Yeah, and spending money and time. And you will put another doubt in your life, actually. You will put another doubt. The new one will come or not, because you cannot expect it. For that reason, we have a right, and as an ECAA Ankara agreement, we have already established company, we have a family here, we establish our life here. Nothing, we don't need anything as long as travel restriction. I think we have to fight with this. Travel restriction is something it's affecting. For example, now I'm thinking my father and my family, my father and my mother is old people. If something happens, I'm not expecting that. It's really burden to me. Of course, they are saying that you can call and take a special permission, blah, blah. I believe that there is a way there. But if I have to travel for my business, it's something that I can't. It's this real thing that we have to fight there, in my opinion, from the user perspective. It's not a question for that. I should comment, but I think we have to concentrate this in my idea. Thank you for listening.
Well, I think it's very much like Ali was saying, you know, when it's so important for business and growing not only the business but growing the input for the economy. Again, it's not rocket science. Even if they wanted to charge an extra premium for an exemption so you could travel for business, I'm sure most people would pay for that. Because I guess the assumption would be there's a reason for it and there would be benefit. But again, it just comes back to find a solution, find something pragmatic, find something that works.
Hi, I'm from Redfern Legal as well. I agree with the audience when they say taking a practical view, but what I don't understand is that during the COVID pandemic, the Home Office were very proactive in implementing concessions such as Tier 5 youth mobility switching in country when they used to have to go out overseas, students being able to switch. They was quite proactive in implementing these concessions. It wasn't ordinarily in place. So what I don't understand is why they can't implement a concession saying due to the delays, we will allow people to travel whilst their application is pending and it won't be deemed to be withdrawn. It seems to be quite a comparable situation for which they're not reacting in the same manner.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, someone in our team did say that once you have gone past the 6-month service standard,
Yeah.
once you've gone past it, you've gone past it, right? Do I really need to like scrabble to get that case resolved? It won't matter. So you know, whatever you're held to account for,
Yeah.
you've already passed it. So you can just let it sit. Because what we've heard from ECAA visa holders that people have applied after them, they're getting their extensions and getting their applications processed within the 6 months time limit. So it is about leaving a certain cohort of people languishing because, well, we've already haven't met the commitment, and others will get processed then much quicker.
So if you see all the changes in the guidance over time, the new routes introduced and things like that, so they seem to be developing quite rapidly in other areas. But in terms of delays, that's where the priority should lie.
Yep. Have we any update on Stephen yet, or?
Yeah, so I was working for Stephen, my name's Joe. Yeah, very sorry, he's had emergency dental care today. Pretty nasty, and he's not going to make it back, unfortunately. And even if he could, he can't actually talk. But yeah, just to say, I've made a few notes, which I'll obviously take back to him. And I think if he was here, he would reflect what a lot of people are saying around this idea of backlog Britain and the idea that there are delays everywhere. It's not just in these types of visas, it's across the board in visas and asylum, and obviously passport office we talked about as well, and the criminal justice system, A&E, it's literally everywhere. And unfortunately, this isn't anything, you know, they'll blame the pandemic, they'll blame Putin, they'll blame whatever. Normally this is down to a failure to plan for the spike in activity post-lockdowns, it's a failure to plan through issues around Brexit, it's a failure to build resilience into the system over the last 12 years, really. And that's where we are. But at the moment, you know, even now, the incompetence and indifference that we're seeing in terms of, for instance, I know we're talking about visas here, but on asylum, putting all the eggs and all the focus onto Rwanda, but actually they should be doing the nuts and bolts tasks of recruiting more decision makers. They had a target recruiting 1,000 decision makers by April, they're still only on 800. So they're just not meeting any of the targets, they're not delivering. And of course, we've heard about the real life consequences today, and also the fact that, you know, not just the consequence on people, which is obviously terrible, missing, not being able to go abroad and delays and so on, but also on the economy and the effect it's having. It's obviously these failures to plan, failures to invest is obviously false economy because you've been missing out on this activity. And just finally to say that if anyone, obviously I've heard the recommendations on the issues around travel restrictions, and I think that the kind of little changes, if you like, we can make there, which would make people's lives easier. If anyone's got any other suggestions that they want to come and share with me, anything we should be asking the government and parliamentary questions, any specific issues that could help people, just give me a shout. I'll be here for the next couple of long.
Thank you, and we'll make sure those details are sent out. I mean, low advised I am to give a shadow minister some homework, but chair's prerogative. But if it is possible to maybe just get a quick kind of side of something of what his thoughts are, and we can then circulate that to. Yeah, that'd be great. Are there any questions anywhere else in the room? Which is always a good start. Well, it's chair's prerogative because it's always Ibrahim who brings us all together. I'll try and bring Ibrahim in and put him in the hotspot for a bit of your thoughts, because obviously you're front and centre of most of it.
Zafar made a great point in terms of the actual issue. It's the travel restrictions. If we can start up maybe a campaign, maybe a way to reach out to British Patel and Kevin Foster to see if they could consider looking into the matter. And if they could remove the clause which restricts people's travel, then the majority of the issue would be resolved before ECAA and people who got businesses from ECAA. And I think we might be able to ask for a meeting through you and Stephen to reach out to Kevin Foster in particular. And I think he had a meeting sometime next week. He was trying to bring at least together to understand key concerns of their constituents. This might be an issue for us to raise today. We've got, I think, 19 or something, July is talking about. I find that one of the PBSs to British Patel, his office was sharing the details of that particular meeting. If we could put this on his agenda, it might be a straightforward thing, to remove that clause. I don't know how it works, but if it's quick and straightforward, then we will be able to resolve the matter.
Can I add one more thing from
for first extension step for doing fast. But if you continue, at least we have 3 extension steps. They blame the COVID this year, but the next extension period was going to be different. That is the more important thing I think you have to highlight.
Okay, sure.
Oh, thank you. The point taken again, Ibrahim. Certainly, when I speak to Kevin Foster next, I'll certainly give him a nudge as well. But I think trying to set up a meeting with him, with maybe a few representatives, would hopefully go a long way. Because he does at least seem to be quite moderate in terms of Pretty's PPSs or whatnot. I'm not even sure she has any at the moment with what's going on with the government, or even if she'll be in post in a few weeks' time. But we can all cross our fingers. Well, I think trying to get a meeting with whoever the Home Secretary is post-recess would be a strong move, especially when we're then going back into hopefully some form of government. Are there any final questions looking around the room? Yes.
I have a short question first to just get the point. I think it's not just the ECAA visa that you need to wait in the UK if you apply for an extension. Right? There are other visas that you have, if you apply in the UK, you can't leave the country, right? It's not specific to ECAA, I guess. So I think this proposal is a kind of major change, right? Like unrestricting that travel thing. So my other suggestion could be the privatization of the people, of the cases, like who have been waiting for a long time. Because I see cases where after the interview people are waiting more than a year. So what is the reason for it, right? So I think they should give a high priority to such cases. So that should be solved in an earlier point, I guess. But at the same time, I think I understand Omar's point. Like, it's a statistics as well. Like, overall, what's the average rate or the average months that you give an answer, right? So if you focus on complex issues, this will go high. So this is not what they want. But at the same time, there are people waiting for like around 2 years. I think they should get some higher priority. So if Home Office can think about the prioritization of the cases, at least people like suffering, they can get their visas earlier. That's what I think.
Yeah, and essentially, as a former complaints director in a company, one of the main things you looked at was your oldest cases to try to turn them around. It's the priority because they're the ones that have been waiting longest. And again, it's not rocket science. We should be putting more resource there, turn those around, and then try to find a way to make sure we don't create any more long-standing cases, especially when some are like 2 years without an interview. And I know, because I've got one poor constituent who literally knocks on my office door every single day to ask if we've had an update, and it's getting to the point where it's embarrassing to say, no, we don't, but we're still ringing every single day, trying to chase for you. It's not fair on him. It's not fair on anyone who suffers from that experience. There was a question about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. I'm here with the ECAA visa. I'm a businessman. I have my office in Dubai, in Turkey, and here. I'm here for more than 6 months. I am exhibitor in Las Vegas exhibition. I'm exhibiting in Las Vegas, in Turkey, and also I'm going to join Gulf Food. But unfortunately, as my friends told us, I'm not able to go and to stay in my exhibition, in my stand in Las Vegas, in Turkey and Dubai. Since we are businessmen, do you have any suggestion to speed up this process, like the travel restriction or something else? We are not asking, to speed up the visa process. As a businessman, I'm import-exporter. I'm working with Africa, with Dubai, with Spain, with different countries. Of course, I want to move here with my whole turnover, but travel restriction is stopping us. Now I'm sending one of my staff to Las Vegas and to Gulf and participate in the exhibition. I just request you, is it possible to add this, like to be exhibited in international exhibitions. Is it possible to make a reason to speed up a decision or just to go and come back?
I would argue it's possible. I think certainly from what Ibrahim was saying, I think if we try to set up some sort of coordinated campaign where every MP is starting to get bombarded by our own constituents who are suffering from either this issue or very similar, as we've heard, that will hopefully start driving some of the change. But for one message I used to hear from ministers all the time, wait 1 second, was that they don't mind receiving one written question. When they start receiving 10, 20, 30 on the same issue, that's when they start realising that there is something they need to start addressing. So the more people from parliamentarians who we get starting to ask these questions, starting to push for a change, that's how we start seeing it, because they don't want to be answering the same question all the time. So I'm sure we'll find a way to start working on that. Are there any other questions from the floor? Yes.
Well, it's a similar topic, but
okay.
How about implementing a paid system like the other visa types? A fast-track system, like wasn't mentioned today, and it's not available for the ECAA visa. Could it be mentioned as well?
I think just in this conversation, we're already having just some common sense approaches, which
it's just not available for the visa type for some reason.
Right. With a lack of further questions, I'll ask the panel if they've got any kind of closing comments they'd like to add. Going around. Even better. Right. In that case, I'll just.
Question: as an experienced MP, what do you think is the likelihood of Home Office actually changing the rules so that these ECA holders and other visa holders are not subject to travel restrictions? What do you think the success rate of this?
I'm not sure I classify myself as an experienced MP. I think it comes down to who is in charge from a political level. I think at the moment it's not their priority. Their priority is trying to deal with small votes, because that's where they see the division and want to push forward on that. A big issue will be who the next Home Secretary is. I think it's plain for everyone to see it won't be Priti Patel come the 5th or 6th of September. So I think it will be imperative at that point to start pushing on a new Home Secretary very quickly to say, actually, this is a big issue, not only because of the human cost, but the business cost, and highlighting the lived experience from your articles back to everything else, and painting that broader picture. And hopefully that common sense that we've just heard from this group, that will prevail. Do I actually have confidence with the current government to do that? No, but it doesn't mean we don't try. I would say at the moment the only real change would be if someone moderate came in. And with the way things are looking at the moment, I don't think that's going to be the case. So we can cross our fingers, hope, but I think at the moment we are going to keep on having to fight. Highlights the huge cost this is having for so many people, and especially when there is a 6-month time frame and they're failing it on a daily basis. What's the point of having an SLA if you're not going to bother keeping to it? Change the LSA or just abandon it and say good luck everyone. It's not fair on any of it. We need to keep on highlighting that. But how confident am I? At the moment, not very.
I see. So what you're saying is, if it was a Labour government, it'd be tomorrow, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I can't speak for the immigration, but I think there would be a lot more onus on the lived experience and the human element. And I think we far too often look at numbers and we don't look at people. That's what we need to change. And obviously, I do think a Labour government would look at the people, but more importantly, they would listen to the people. And I think that's what we need to do a lot more of. But if there's no further comments from our speaker, I will draw the meeting to a close. Obviously, thank you everyone who's come today to listen to the panel. Mainly thank you to our excellent speakers. Thank you for everyone who's hopefully listening at home, and I'm sure we'll get more information out in due course. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.